Barry Bonds' opponent today is tougher than any pitcher he's ever faced. Prosecutors will want to prove in federal court that he lied about using steroids. Coming up, I'll have a live report.
And workers have been evacuated from the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan, plus why investigators are now pointing the finger at the operators of that plant.
And dramatic pictures coming out of Libya as tensions in the country continue to rise after a weekend of air attacks, including a missile that blasted leader Muammar Gaddafi's residential compound. We'll have the latest out of Libya as the Kron 4 Morning News at 6 starts now.
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is the Kron 4 Morning News.
Good morning. It is Monday, March 21st. Thanks for joining us.
A wet and windy weekend around the Bay Area. More storms to come. We're going to get to weather in a moment, but we're going to start with a hot spot on the Bay Bridge. George Rask has the latest in the traffic center.
Thank you, Mark. It was a two-car accident reported in the westbound direction right at Yerba Buena Island, and it's in the right-hand lane where these two cars are pulled over, but also pulled over at the scene was a third vehicle, a big rig, and it's unknown whether or not that vehicle was involved. I'm somewhat surprised that we haven't yet had to activate the metering lights, because you can see traffic is building here on the incline section of the bridge, but manages to move pretty well here across the cantilever span. So it's possible that bridge crews, which have already been summoned to the scene, may have managed to get that lane open, that right lane in the westbound direction. So perhaps a little better news. Certainly better news for our hotspot on Highway 4. Take a look here. All lanes are now open westbound on Highway 4, and so things are starting to pick up a bit already in what would usually be a slow stretch leading out from Antioch over to Pittsburgh. It's likely, however, that this backup will very quickly reach the bypass, although it might have already. But again, better news in the westbound direction. All lanes have been opened here at Loveridge, where it was a motorcycle crash that for a while, nearly 15 to 20 minutes, blocked both of the westbound lanes. And if you're heading to the Sierra, you're going to need chains for sure on both Interstate 80, U.S. Highway 50, and on Highway 88, though portions of it are completely shut down between Kirkwood and Silver Lake because of the high snow levels there. Let's find out more about the weather's doing to the roadways and to the rest of us. Here's James Fletcher with a weather update.
George, thank you very much. Beginning with a live picture out of Santa Cruz this morning. Can you make that out there on the road surface? We've got rain coming down heavy at times. Kron 4's Craig Sklar out there right now giving us this shot, and he said it was coming down rather intensely when we talked with him on the phone about 5 minutes ago, and then he got a shot up, and there we see it coming down on our cameras. Let's go to Storm Tracker 4. Look at that cell right now over Santa Cruz. You see Santa Cruz there. Moderate to heavy at times showers here. You can see the yellows popping up in the middle of this light rain. So we got moderate activity, rain coming down fairly well here in Santa Cruz. As we pull the maps out and take a broader look at the Bay Area, you see we're kind of just spotty hit or miss throughout the Bay. We were following a cell across San Francisco and on into Oakland. There you see it's still tracking across the Bay right now, just south of the bridge, but impacting San Francisco and impacting Oakland. Alameda now getting some light shower activity this morning. Also spotted some along the peninsula, too. If you make your drive from, let's say, Sunnyvale all the way up into San Francisco, along the way, you're going to run into some scattered shower activity here and there. Most of it will be light, not looking for much of anything heavy today, although this afternoon when the sun comes out and we start to get the heating of the day, we may see a thunderstorm or two, so beware of that. Up in the Sierra, also seeing some pretty good activity this morning. As George was saying, we have chain requirements for all the major arteries headed to North and South Lake Tahoe, and you can see it on the map here, the rain turning to snow at right around, it looks like maybe the 3,000 to 4,000 foot level at this point. We'll get a better fix on that in a minute, but snow nonetheless up there, so bring your chains. You're going to need them, and we're going to get more activity throughout the week, too. You'll see that in the 7-day. Right now, we're in the upper 40s, low 50s. We'll get up to the mid-50s this afternoon, looking for 55 in San Francisco, 58 in Santa Rosa, 57 in Oakland, also looking for 57 down in San Jose. Right around 54, 55, 56 for our far East Bay locations, Antioch and Livermore. All right, as we said, we do expect more rains throughout the day, or throughout the week, really. Tuesday, okay for most of the day, but late into the night and into Wednesday, we've got more rain activity, more showers and rain for Thursday, sprinkles Friday, maybe more sprinkles Saturday, and even heavier rain comes Sunday. So we're going to be on that on-again, off-again rain pattern throughout the rest of this week, just like we had it last week and into last weekend, with temperatures not really getting out of the 50s, because this is is another cold storm, series of cold storms headed our way. 6:05 the time, guys.
All right, thank you, James. And topping our news at this hour, it's been 7 years in the making. In just a couple of hours, home run leader Barry Bonds' perjury trial will start here in San Francisco. Kron 4's Will Trent live at the Federal Building with more on what's expected to happen today. Will?
Well, Mark, the trial will begin at 8:30 this morning. Barry Bonds is expected to pull up, as he always does, right in front. There should be barricades set up. Lots of people should be here, including the media as well as fans, if we've seen anything in the past. It's a simple question. Did he lie or did he not lie when he testified before a grand jury back in 2003 when he said he never knowingly used steroids? Well, prosecutors, they don't believe it, and they are set to prove that he did knowingly use steroids. They have plenty of witnesses, about 52 altogether. They also have what they believe is strong evidence, including a urine sample back in 2003 that showed allegedly that he did test positive for steroids. What they won't have is Greg Anderson, Bonds' longtime friend, childhood friend, and longtime trainer. He's refused to testify in the past and even went to jail for more than a year. And then he said this time that he also will not testify against Barry Bonds. So that is a key component that's been worked out several years in the making, that the judge said you cannot have Greg Anderson, and without Greg Anderson, they will have a tough time proving the alleged evidence that links Bonds to steroid use. But Bonds himself might be the best witness of them all, Mark, because they will try to prove that an athlete in his mid to late 30s should not be as productive as Barry Bonds was. It's a time when a lot of athletes start to think about retiring. Instead, his career, his productivity went up to becoming the all-time home run leader. So we'll just have to wait and see. Should be quite a spectacle. We will have full coverage when Barry Bonds should arrive at about 15 minutes before court begins, as he always does. Back to you, Mark.
All right, well, we'll check back with you throughout the morning. Daria.
All right, now to the latest on the crisis in Japan. Workers trying to cool the troubled Fukushima nuclear plant were evacuated today after smoke rose from one of the damaged reactors. Now, the cause of the smoke, they say, is unclear. Japan's nuclear safety agency says the operator of the nuclear complex repeatedly failed to make crucial inspections of equipment in the weeks before the quake and tsunami that crippled the whole plant. Earlier in the day, the health ministry advised one village about 20 miles away from the plant not to drink any tap water because of the elevated levels of iodine. But the government has said the radiation levels are still too small to pose an immediate health risk. The U.S. State Department is offering potassium iodide to its staff in Japan as a precaution against possible radiation coming from the plant. The department advises the employees, though, to refrain from taking the compound at this time, and that it should only be done after there are specific instructions from the U.S. government.
We're following. And this is the latest out of Libya. Supporters of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi are converging on airports to protect them as human shields as U.S.-led missile strikes try to cripple Gaddafi's forces. You see some of the anti-aircraft fire going up in the skies over Tripoli. This is the latest video that just came into Kron 4. It's the second night in a row that heavy anti-aircraft fire has been shot up into the air by Libyan forces. Britain now saying it's aborted a bombing mission overnight to avoid civilian casualties as they are acting as human shields. A cruise missile did destroy Gaddafi's residential compound. Meanwhile, Pentagon officials say the U.S.-led coalition has succeeded in scattering and isolating Libyan forces of Gaddafi after a weekend of punishing airstrikes. And they believe Gaddafi's military is under significant stress. So here's the video out of Italy where British and U.S. jets converge on air bases for operation. Some 200 Libyans have arrived by boat in Sicily for the first major influx of Libyan immigrants since the revolt began in the North African country over a month ago. Let's go to Justine for more on what's happening in Libya. She's the latest from the newsroom.
Well, good morning. The 4 New York Times journalists who have been held by Libya will be released today. A spokesman for the Turkish embassy in Washington says that the journalists were handed over to the Turkish ambassador in Tripoli, and they are expected to cross the border into Tanzania later on today. Libyan authorities say that the journalists were captured during fighting in the eastern part of the country last week. Good news, though, they will be released today. Right now it is 6:09. Kron 4 Morning News. We'll be right back.